Evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Women of WordPress New York City. We started about 3 years ago with this meetup after a WordCamp. We had a panel of women who expressed the need just to have a space, to talk and share skills and network. And so, seeing the conversation on Twitter, it just seemed appropriate to put together an event series, just for us. We get a lot of questions about why over the years, and we have a lot of men who want to join the meetup, but really it's about having a safe space for us and an opportunity to speak freely and to take the time to speak too. I've been to so many events, where it takes us a little bit longer to have that conversation. And so in the middle of, that space in between the time the presentation stops and we start to speak, chances are, there's a guy who's jumped in and he's either sharing his expertise or, he's kind of leading the questioning and stuff. And so, that's really the reason why we've just made such an effort, to make it possible for us to just have that space so that we can, speak freely and also just speak at the pace that we're comfortable with. So that's how we started. And it's really a pleasure to have each of you here with us. I would love for us to introduce ourselves and get to know each other. Since we are a little delayed in how we're starting, it looks like we won't have the opportunity to do it. But I do want to say hello to everybody. I'm just gonna go down and say hello. So Amanda, Amy, Andrea, our speaker, Amy Carol, Cami, thanks for joining us. I have an E in there, but I can't see. So let's see, Carol, let's see, let me go down. I see Eleanor, Farusha, Kimberly, Martha. Let's see, I'm trying to get all our names. Seema, Amanda, Ruth, Sabi or Sabi, Sharon, Kimberly, and Penny, thank you so much for joining. Eureka, I see you over there. Giselle, Tracy, Narisa, Shannon, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Is it Soshi? It is? Okay, it's close. Okay, all right.
It's Soki. It's similar to Sophie. Yeah,
okay.
Soki. Thank
Got
you.
It. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Soki. And so it's just a pleasure to have all of you with us. Andrea Zoellner is our speaker, and Meryl will introduce her. I first want to start off with just welcoming you to this particular meetup. It's the one that we're having for Women's History Month, and I think it's great to have it just to celebrate us, and it's also really great to have Andrea speak for us too. She's awesome, and Meryl will tell you more about her. Andrea works for the company Kinsta, and I want to give a shout out to them because they're our sponsor. They've made it possible for us throughout last year and this year as well to continue meetups. We had to pivot from in-person to online. And so Kinsta has really made it possible, and I'm deeply appreciative. And I know that Meryl is too, and Lisa Lead, who was one of our organizers up until the end of last year. Kinsta takes managed WordPress hosting and performance to the next level. They're powered by Google Cloud Platform, and it's a lightning fast premium tier network. WordPress users can choose from 23 plus data centers around the world. And they host all types of sites. They have 24/7 support, 365 days a week. And you can learn more about Kinsta that we've shared under this event. And their link is there as well. So definitely look into the services that they offer. And just know that we're really appreciative, Kinsta, for your supporting us.
All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm going to introduce Andrea Zoellner, our speaker. She's the head of growth at Kinsta, a Google Cloud powered managed WordPress hosting company. She trained as a broadcast journalist and worked in communications in the nonprofit, healthcare, and financial sectors before training it in for a career in tech. In her current role, she oversees Kinsta's growth marketing strategies, including lead generation, advertisement, affiliate marketing, and social media. When she's not stuck at home in Montreal, Canada, she's usually and hopes to again soon continue sampling the digital nomad life, traveling to speak at conferences like WordCamp New York City twice, and documenting her adventures on her travel blog, The Capsule Suitcase. So we're gonna have to check that out. So here's Andrea.
Thank you so much, Meryl.
I like to say that Andrea travels and she does it stylishly.
Thanks. Not so much traveling right now. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I love New York City. It's one of my favorite cities. Montreal is not that far away. Under normal circumstances, I would have visited New York a few times already in the last year, but sadly, I haven't. But it's first on my list as soon as I can again. I may have met some of you actually at WordCamp New York in the past. I've attended a couple times, I've spoken a few times, so really lovely to be back and amongst this community. My topic tonight is 10 low-cost ways to drive traffic to your website. And before I start sharing my slides, just a show of hands, or maybe you want to drop it in the chat, who currently runs the website, or yeah, a couple people here. Anybody who hasn't launched a website but is planning on it? It seems like a lot of people already have their sites up and running and are probably looking to get more traffic to it. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. And just let me know if you don't see the slides. Whoa, keep the chat open here so I can see some of your replies. Awesome. So here's the topic tonight. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this is because, one, it's just really practical tips. And I think there's a lot of inspirational content out there on starting your own business or getting online. But ultimately, when it comes down to brass tacks, you're wondering, how do I get more eyeballs on my content? How do I get more people engaging with it? And inspirational content can only get you so far. So I'm hoping to share some really concrete ideas. But although it's kind of a short time frame, I'm going to try and give you some places to start, along with a lot of resources to continue reading on all of these points. So whoops. You already know who I am, Head of Growth. And if you want to follow me on Twitter and such, I'll leave my links at the end of the presentation. So I have to give a shout out to my colleague, Matteo, because a lot of the tips that I am sharing tonight are 100% taken from this blog post, which is kind of a grouping of some of Kinsta's favorite tips, things that we've done in the past, things that our customers continue to do. And I'm going to drop a link to this article in the chat so that you can save it for later. If you ask me for my slides, I'll just send you straight to this article, because this has the 10 tips I'm going to share and, a lot more content. So this is a great one to bookmark for later. All right. Tip number 1 is content marketing. Now, for a lot of bloggers out there, you're probably saying, my whole website is content marketing. I'm a blogger. This is what I do. So, but if you're running a website that is not focused on content, you do want to consider content as part of your strategy. It is low cost if you are blogging yourself, and it's a good way to build up a lot of things at once. You're building up your credibility. It's an opportunity to talk about your topic, whether that's a product that you're trying to sell or a service that you're trying to sell, and to build up also your reputation in the industry as an opinion leader or a thought leader. So these are reasons that are not necessarily monetary that you'd want to consider adding content marketing to your strategy. The second one is obviously SEO, so search engine optimization. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on SEO because it is such a massive topic in and of itself. So I do recommend checking out the links that are in that blog post I linked to, because there is so much more to learn about SEO beyond what I'm going to present tonight. But content marketing in a nutshell is really just populating your website with more posts. There's a lot of different things that you can write about that will really help drive traffic to your website. The number one is really to kind of write for SEO, so search engine optimization. Writing useful content, to me, is writing content that answers people's questions. So a lot of people start with researching sort of the top questions that people might type into Google to get to your website. So if you're trying to sell, comfortable shoes, then maybe, you want to start with the keywords that people might search when they're looking for those kinds of products. So how to choose a comfortable shoe, or how do I, find a comfortable shoe online, things like that. And so you can use a lot of tools actually to find those key questions. Services like SEMrush and a lot of online keyword finders will help you kind of reverse engineer those questions and then write your content from those. The second piece of advice I would give is to write evergreen content. So things that don't go out of style, that don't age. And you can write evergreen content that has some more timely elements to it, and then just go back regularly and update those and republish and keep that content fresh. So you don't have to rewrite a new piece of content every single year. You can also go in and update that piece of content. And Google recognizes that, and they reward that kind of content. The third tip I have is to publish long form content. So I love to skim things, so I might not be the best target audience for this tip, but Google rewards long form content. And this is something that you'd want to invest in if you maybe you can't publish content frequently, but you want it to be really high quality. Long form is the way to go. And evergreen long form is also a good tip, as long as you keep updating it and make sure that nothing needs to be updated on your website. The fourth one is to publish more list posts. So this is commonly called listicles, which is like lists and articles together. You'll see this on websites like BuzzFeed and different types of websites that really favor kind of the clickbait titles, but there's something to be said for the value of listicles. They're relatively easy to put together, and I would say even more easy to read. They're really great for skimmers. They're really great for people that kind of just want to be able to find the information. And they're also really easy to create really strong SEO structure around. So you can have anchor links for each of the tips. You can, just structure your content with H2s and H3s that help Google understand what your post is about. And this kind of content can also help you be featured in Google snippets, which is when someone types something in and like the first article appears in the search results with the tips. Those kind of listicles can help you rank for those kinds of spots, which are pretty key spot to be in a Google search page. And another tip that I have is to create an expert roundup post. Now, this goes both ways. I recommend being featured on these posts on other people's blogs if you have an opportunity. And I also recommend posting these on your website as well. So this is just, I find this a great piece of content because one, it allows you to reach out to people who are well known in a certain industry, or who might have something to say. So let's say you want to have the top 10 experts or top 10 people who of a certain category weigh in on this question. One, it allows you to build a connection with that person that you're interviewing. It allows you to have a piece of content that is mostly written by other people, so you don't have too much work to do. And if you're lucky, they will then share the article with their audiences because they've been featured in it. So it kind of has like a triple threat benefit there. And so it's one of my favorite pieces of content to develop. Right. My tip number 2 is link building, which again is kind of an SEO related tactic. And SEO is a huge topic. So this is only one really tiny sliver of an SEO strategy. But link building is essentially how Google perceives the quality of your website is the quality of the links that you have in your articles, and also the quality of the people who are, and the number of people who are referring back to your website. So the more people list your content on their website as a high quality source, the more Google is going to reward you and think that you're a high quality source and send people to you. So it's kind of a long a long game strategy of ranking higher and getting more people to see your content on page 1 of Google. So one technique for link building, I mean, the most obvious technique is just to reach out to people and ask them to put a link in their websites and on their blogs, linking back to yours. But a more strategic way of doing it is called the Skyscraper technique. And this is that you go after really high ranking pieces of content. So maybe, the top 10 that appear in Google's search results. Find the ones that are really highly ranked, that have really good backlinks. And you can use a tool like Ahrefs for that, or BuzzSumo to find the URLs. So find like the really buzzy pieces of content. Step 2, go and create something way better, something that is more up to date, that has more information, better visuals. I don't know how, but do something better. And then go back to all of the people that were linked or have linked to that first piece of content, and then reach out to them and say, hey, I just created something that's better. You should swap out that link for my link. So it's a little bit of a sneaky strategy. I try not to do too much of it, but one method, if you feel like you are actually contributing more up-to-date, better content, you can use this template that I have here on the slide to just reach out to those blogs. You can say, hey, I was reading your blog post about this, and I noticed you linked to this page. Just wanted to let you know that I just published something new and that's maybe more updated or more refined. And here's the link. And depending on what kind of answers you might get, a lot of people might go in and choose your post over another, and that gets you all of that Google juice that you didn't have before. Tip number 3, email marketing. Now, email marketing is also one of my favorite tips because people think, email is dead, but time and time again, research and, marketing data shows that people are actually really engaged with their inboxes. And if you can create a conversation with people in their email, they're more likely to go to your website, and they're more likely to keep coming back and to listen to you and to look forward to your emails and to find value in them. So if you can come up with a really good email marketing strategy, then you'll have a conversation going, and you'll have an audience that's kind of ready for you to talk to. Now, this kind of feels like a chicken and egg because people might not sign up to your emails unless they found your website. And if they haven't found your website yet, how can you get them on the email list? So, building a really solid email strategy does start with email list building. So again, that's like a whole other topic that you'll probably want to research separately if you have the time for it and you want to learn more about that. But, some strategies can start with social media. So you want to throw up an email subscription form on your website, and then maybe you want to build off of what you have on social media already and point people to that email sign up and start collecting emails that way. And then you get them into your email sequences and you have that audience. And then the way that you get more traffic from your email list is to constantly point people back to your website. So that's something that, it kind of goes hand in hand, and it's sort of this flywheel effect of getting people to your website to open the email, back to the email to open, and you get more and more traffic that way. A couple of things that you want to keep in mind when working on your email marketing strategy is, well, one, it's fairly inexpensive. So, if you are just working from your WordPress website, there are some plugins that you can install to, one, collect emails, but also to send emails. And I know that MailChimp is a very popular tool. I don't know what their pricing model is like recently, but for a pretty simple list, I think it's still free. So there's a lot of ways that you can start sending out emails without a huge investment. You do want to consider where you're placing your subscription list sign up. So I know that if you have a Facebook page, you could easily integrate MailChimp, for example, so people can sign up for your emails directly from Facebook, and there's other tactics like that. But you want to make it as easy as possible while also following all the rules for anti-spam. So if you're trying to email people around the world, make sure that you have your form is ready for GDPR and things like that, those considerations. After that, it's all about having high quality emails. So keep your emails to the point, have really eye-catching subject lines. What I like to do is I sign up to companies that I really admire, and I sign up to their emails, and I just see how they write their headlines. Do they use emojis? Do they not? Do they have GIF animations inside? Like, what are they doing, and how am I responding to it? Do I like it? Do I not like it? And so that's just a way. It's kind of like when you're writing a book, you just have to read a lot of books. It helps kind of get those ideas flowing. And I would say it's the same for email marketing. I like reading other people's emails. It helps me with mine. So sharing buttons is also great, because the best thing that can happen is someone loves your email content so much, they forward it to a friend, and hopefully they like it because it's a friend who's recommending it, and you get another subscriber, or you get one more person visiting your website. I would say that you also want to make sure that you have subscription links and opportunities to sign up to your emails throughout your website, not just in one place. So make sure you have call to action buttons or, banners throughout your website that make people, who might have enjoyed your blog post, think of signing up to your emails. You also don't want to overwhelm people, because, the unsubscribe button is so close and so quick that, you want to make sure people are still engaging with your content and you're not sending too many emails. Oops, I skipped something there that I wanted to draw your attention to, which is this pop-up with like a keto recipe. You'll probably see these on so many websites. And one of the reasons why this works so well is that you're giving people a reason to subscribe. So you're not just saying, I promise to send you really great emails in the future. You're saying, if you sign up now, I'll send you this piece of content that is exclusive. And those lead magnets, as we call them, or content magnets, are great ways to build your email list, because you're giving people value immediately, and they can choose to unsubscribe later if they really only wanted this PDF download. But the chances are they'll at least, receive a couple emails from you before they make up their mind. Content aggregators. This is an opportunity for people to kind of tap into third-party website audiences. And these aggregator sites are sites that don't actually produce content themselves. They just repurpose and republish other people's content with accreditation. So they're not like stealing your content, but they are opportunities for you to have another window, have another, portal of visibility that you wouldn't otherwise have. So they aggregate into one location. Some of them are themed by topic. Others are more like a mix. So to kind of keep things fresh, they might pull from different industries. And typically it's fairly easy to submit. So you don't have to reach out, find the editor and find their email address and reach out with a custom pitch. Typically, these kinds of websites will have automated ways for you to submit your content, and you might even be able to submit your RSS feed. So that's also automated every time you publish something new. There's really no guarantee that it'll pick up steam, but it's always a good practice if you want to automate that, because it more or less runs on its own. Online communities, kind of like this one. Online communities are a great way to hone into your niche audience and to really market and speak to them. And online communities can mean so many different things. I mean, now communities that were not online have become online communities. So it's kind of a catch-all term, but I'll give you some examples of what I mean here. Now, some of the obvious ones are like Facebook groups. I think that those have just, I don't use Facebook a lot for myself in terms of like sharing my life, but one of the reasons why I'm still very active on Facebook is, well, Marketplace, Facebook groups. And I just find Facebook groups is where it's at for these kinds of exchanges and communities. And I'm part of some that are neighborhood-based, location-based, and others that are more professional groups. So there's a lot of kind of help and support happening in these Facebook groups, and a lot of content sharing as well. So what I would caution is, if you join a Facebook group, make sure you read the rules, because there are Facebook groups that don't allow you to self-promote but they do have like a self-promote Wednesday thread where you can share a recent blog post that you've published on that thread exclusively. So different groups have different rules. So make sure as you join that you're aware so you don't accidentally get kicked out. Reddit is another place. That's kind of the original, I think, forum where a lot of people got some visibility. And Slack channels is kind of a new version of this where people will create Slack instances and have different channels where professionals can exchange and share content and links. So that's kind of a new territory to explore. And then good old-fashioned forums. And I would say one thing about forums is that sometimes they can look outdated, but actually be the most happening place. So don't let the look of a forum turn you off. There's often a lot of secret gold there, even though it kind of looks a little like Web 1.0. Forums, all of that. So yeah, there's a couple of things to look out for when you join forums, which are choosing a username carefully, putting a link in your signature, which can help point people to your website, making sure that you seem like someone reputable in your forums. Don't be overly promotional of yourself, be genuinely helpful, and make sure that the quality of what you're sharing is really high. Oh, starting new threads too. You know, I think being kind of a pioneer and a conversation creator can help you boost your visibility in a forum. And similarly to forums are Q&A websites. So I think the first one that comes to mind for people is Quora. And Quora has also, they have their own types of rules about asking and answering questions, but for professionals, it can be a really great way to weigh in on topics that they're looking for people that have experience, that are professionals, that have kind of the credentials to speak on a topic. So I find Quora to be a really great place if you are trying to provide services. You know, I think a lot of lawyers for hire answer Quora questions. A lot of business coaches answer Quora questions. So this is a place where you can provide a little bit of free content in exchange for that visibility. And I think the more you answer questions and the more upvotes you get, the more you'll be deemed as like a Quora expert. So that can help drive more traffic to your website as well. Quora is not the only one, of course. You have Yahoo Answers, Stack Exchange, Stack Overflow, and Answers.com, which are similar. Social media is like its own topic, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through this one with some pretty high-level tips. Now, for some, yeah, this will apply to most, I would say, but you want to make sure that you have a fully complete profile. So number one, make sure there's a link going to your website in some form or fashion. If you have business pages, make sure those are formatted correctly. And then the next thing is to promote your blog content. Now, I would do a little bit more research when I say promote your blog content based on the platform itself, because what I've found personally is, you know, if you're trying to promote an outbound link, Facebook won't favor it over someone who's publishing content natively in Facebook. So I think that's true for LinkedIn as well. You know, they want you to be using their tools. So if you create a post in LinkedIn, it's going to get more visibility than if you just, you know, publish a link to your blog and just like all by itself. So there's some things that you might want to test there. So maybe providing a really, really great caption that's almost like a microblog that really entices people to go to your website, but gives enough content so that LinkedIn considers it like a hefty post and favors it. So for Facebook, for example, if you are really active on YouTube, what I've done in the past is cut up my YouTube video and posted a portion of it natively to Facebook, because Facebook will show that to more people than just an outbound link to YouTube. So there's some things to consider there on how you use social media to really get the most out of that platform, while also building up the traffic to your website, which is the ultimate goal. I would say also make sure it's interesting content, make sure you're posting it in the right places. And in terms of which platform to pick, there's really no, you know, silver bullet. It depends where your audience is. It depends, like where they're most active, whether that's in Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups or Instagram. It totally depends on demographics, age, industry. So, I would do some research, pick a few. You don't have to be everywhere, but one thing I would recommend is to kind of park your presence on those social media platforms. So let's say you are an author and you've just written a book and you really, you can't be everywhere. I would still reserve my Instagram profile with my name or with my book, the book name, or I would buy the domain name. I would, kind of claim those presences across social media and just put up a little bit of content. Maybe not, maintain them as closely as my main social media platform. But just so, if people happen to be on Instagram more than elsewhere, they can still find you, and then they'll see the link to your website, or they'll see, they'll see how to find you on other platforms. I don't recommend, if you're one person, being on all of the platforms full time, because that is a full-time job. And sometimes it can be a little bit demoralizing when not all the platforms perform as well as your main one. This image is a little bit fuzzy, but I think you get the gist of it. This is just kind of a rule. It's a loose rule. I wouldn't say that it's very strict, but basically it's just a couple of suggestions on how not to be perceived as overly self-promotional. So one way is to balance into kind of these thirds, the type of content you share. So one might be your creation. So your YouTube videos, your blog posts, the things that you create, and you want to drive traffic to your website that way. But the other one is curation. So you want to be the one who is known as someone who has really good insight or good taste, or sharing information that you wouldn't have heard otherwise. So this is where curation comes into play as another thing that you can share. And then the other one is conversation. So you want to make sure you're not just broadcasting, but that you're also, that it's social. You have to put the social in the media. You have to be answering people, asking questions, being interested in sort of how they engaged with your content, and foster those conversations. And the other reason, and this is very, very true for Instagram, the reason why you want to foster those conversations is the more comments you get, the more the algorithm is going to favor your content, and they'll show it to, they'll start by showing it to 30 of your followers. And if that does well, they'll show it to the next 30 followers. And then if that does well, so you want to make sure that those comments keep coming in and that you're replying to your comments. YouTube. The reason why YouTube gets its own slide is because after Google, YouTube is the #2 search engine. And of course, it's owned by Google. So there's a lot of reasons why that's true. But I would, if you have the opportunity to launch a YouTube channel, if it's something you're interested in, I would say go for it, do it, because not only is YouTube a really great search engine for you and an opportunity for you to be known and link back to your website, but the content that you publish on YouTube, when you embed it on your website, can do wonders for the blog posts themselves. Google will boost content that has videos embedded on it. So if you can kind of, I'm not going to say kill two birds with one stone, because we're actually retiring that at Kinsta, but my colleague uses mash 2 potatoes with 1 fork. So if you can do that, then that is, like, YouTube is a fantastic way to kind of build your credibility, build your presence. And they say, just so that you go in knowing what to expect, they say it takes 35 videos published to YouTube for you to actually start seeing a lot of traction. But those don't have to be 35 good videos. So the longer you wait and the more you delay, the longer it's going to take you to get that visibility. So even if your first 10 videos are like not that great, go for it, because you'll find your stride. And at 35 videos, YouTube will start seeing your content and showing it to people. And that's when I think you'll see the most growth. There's a couple of things here you can note about how to maximize each video. So A couple that we use at Kinsta is, we kind of use the same tactics that we did for our blog on the types of video content that we create. So what are people searching for? What are the questions they want answered? Those are the videos that we created first. And in the description, we link back to all of these pieces of content that we created on our written blog that support the YouTube video. So there's lots of opportunities for people to click back to our website. You can add cards. So I think you need to have over a certain number of followers to be allowed to link out of YouTube back to your website. But once you have that feature enabled, that is huge. That's huge traffic to your website. And you also want to add that into your videos as well, calling people to go to your website. So maybe offering them something on your website, sharing more resources there, giving them a reason to link out of YouTube and back to your website. Podcasts and webinars. So this is kind of similar to what I'm doing tonight. I think it's really valuable for people who are trying to draw attention to their websites or who are trying to build a network and a community to share some of their expertise on podcasts, on webinars, at online events, because it just exposes you to a new audience and it just allows you to build those connections and to have a little bit of FaceTime, I guess, that kind of leaps off of the page too. So there's so many reasons why it's great to do podcasts and webinars. Also, if it's recorded, you'll have that piece of content, hopefully in a video format, that you can embed on your website, which Google will love. So if you're trying to reach out to maybe a podcast host, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. So what I would do is that if I was trying to be a guest on a lot of podcasts, hosting a podcast and starting a podcast is not for everyone. So it's, if you want to start out just by being a guest, that's a great way. And I would say, here's kind of an example of a strategy to be, let's say that you set your sights on being on 10 podcasts this year. I would start by looking at the niche that I want to be in. If it's business coaching or, real estate, look for all of the podcasts that talk about that. You can use Stitcher or Podbean. You can do a Google search and just kind of use those keywords like your niche plus podcast and find a list of them and the email addresses and just send your pitch to whoever it is that manages the bookings or whoever is the host of that podcast. By contacting the host, I would, make sure that each email is customized and that it speaks to why you want to be on their podcast. And then hopefully they invite you to be on the podcast, and you want to make sure that you have maybe a landing page on your website that speaks to that audience, or something that you can mention on the podcast that has a really short URL that people can remember. And then also ask the podcast host to co-promote your website. So, when they write up their show notes, make sure there's a link to your website and to who you are, and all of that as like a package in your participation. And so promote it to your email list or promote your email list on the podcast. There's lots of things you can do for cross-pollination there. And yeah, again, hopefully you have a recording of that podcast that you can share and, make the most of on social media. Co-marketing is another tip. And similarly to blogging as a guest blogger or appearing on people's podcasts, the point of co-marketing is to tap into a wider audience that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. So the best strategy that I would recommend for co-marketing is really starting with outlining who might be a good fit for your co-marketing, because co-marketing itself can take on a lot of shapes and forms. You could co-market a piece of content or a contest. So first I would say pick your partner really well. And then after that, come up with the strategy of what you want to co-market together. So a really good partner might be someone with a similar audience to yours. So you know that by speaking to their audience, you're reaching the right person. So hopefully their audience is larger than yours. So you are tapping into an audience that they've built over time and that will help you grow. And, I would say find someone that complements you more than competes with you. So, maybe there's a gap that you can fill for them or that they can fill for you. So it's kind of a mutually beneficial partnership. Make sure it's someone that has a good reputation that you want to partner with, because you are putting your own reputation on the line when both your logos appear together, or when you're being featured in their content. Make sure that they're easy to work with, which you might not know right off the bat, especially if you're just starting a new collaboration. But, I think if there are some red flags, just like any business association, you'd probably want to put an end to it if there's, any reasons why this might be more trouble than it's worth. And I would say also be very clear about what you're hoping to get out of it and what your expectations are, so you can be on the same page from the get-go. Now, a couple of examples of what co-marketing might look like. You could run a contest or a giveaway together. So you might offer a 1-hour business consultation and someone else might offer hosting, for example. So someone might be able to get their website off the ground. You could co-create a piece of content. So you could co-write an ebook or do a video piece together. It could be a cross-platform social media campaign. So you'll appear on my Instagram Live and I'll appear on your Instagram Live, that kind of thing. Or you could just, in a very simple way, organize a follow for follow or a share for share agreement where every piece of content that they publish, you will share it in your newsletter, and vice versa. Someone else might share a piece of content of yours in their newsletter. And so I kind of just shared something from YouTube that I stole. This is something that a lot of YouTubers do, which is they ask one question to a bunch of other YouTubers, and then they ask those YouTubers to then share that piece of content that they've created with their followers in other ways. So the piece of content is unique because it's only published on one of the creators' channels, but the promotion that goes on after is with all 6 of these guests. So it's almost like the video version of one of those pieces of content I shared in tip number 1, where you have a roundup of experts. So there's a lot of different ways co-marketing and shapes it can take, but ultimately the goal is that you're widening your audience and getting more people to your website. And the last tip is a paid tip. So this one is ads. But this is more of just a primer on how to go about spending on ads and how to make sure that even if you're spending just a little bit, you can get more out of it. So, there's a couple of different ways that you can pay to play. And, sometimes I don't want to be a pessimist and say that, you really always have to throw money at it to gain any sort of visibility. But one thing that is becoming increasingly true is that you kind of have to follow the rules of the platforms that you're using to get the most visibility. So, that doesn't necessarily mean paying for ads, but in the case of Instagram, whenever they release a new feature, they will give more visibility to people who use their latest feature. So that's why everyone's making reels, and reels are so popular. It's because Instagram favors people who use their latest feature. Now, I'm not an employee of Instagram. We're not employees of Instagram. So we're not beholden to Instagram's own objectives and product roadmaps. We have our own goals. So I would say it's always a balance of doing things that the platforms we're trying to grow on demand of us, and also keeping our eyes on the North Star of what we want to achieve. Because if it's getting bookings on your website, you can be on Instagram all day long, but if people aren't clicking on that link in bio to your website or DMing you to book something with you, then ultimately the likes aren't really serving your higher purpose. So one of the ways that, we can sort of harness these social media platforms or harness these platforms off of our website in a way that works is to invest a little bit of money in their ad tools. It's because I feel like Google ads can be a little intimidating, whereas throwing a little bit of money at an Instagram ad is actually very easy and can give you some business insight and some data to work with to start building larger campaigns in the future when you maybe have a little bit more budget, or you have some goals that you really want to invest in terms of driving traffic and paid ways might be the only way to get that growth really quickly. So social media ads, great great way to get started. Great way to spend, you know, $6, $10, $12 here and there. Just understanding where your audiences are, how they're engaging with your content, figuring out, you know, how, what kind of graphics perform well. So you might want to do a couple of tests with different styles of images. So I really like boosting and using the ad tools on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for that reason. Retargeting ads, again, a little bit more sophisticated because you do have to install a Google or a Facebook pixel or things on your website that allow people to be tracked. But what's really great about retargeting ads is that you're only showing ads to people who have already visited your website. So this is not necessarily a how to drive traffic to your website for first-time people who are visiting your site, but more how to get those people back on your site if you want them to convert to, you know, buy something on your site. Display ads, again, another great way. Paid search ads, so this is more in the realm of Google. You can also pay for paid discovery, like Outbrain and Taboola. And you can also pay for sponsored content on other websites, which is another way of kind of blending content marketing with ads in one sort of combo type. So yeah, I would say don't be afraid of ads. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get visibility. But if you want to play around with it, start small, test your graphics so that when you do find a piece of content like an image or something that really is working well, you can spend more money where it's working really well rather than spending money kind of all over the place. And so that was my last tip, the one that probably cost the most. All the other ones mostly require your time and your investment in terms of like your own personal resources. But I would say one of the greatest investments you can do for your own business is to invest in yourself. So whether that is courses or learning more about things, or just making sure that what you are putting out is really high quality. So, you know, maybe that is spending a little bit money on a photographer to get better images for your website, and you can use those images for Pinterest or for your social media platforms for your advertisement. So small investments like that might not seem like big game changers could turn out to be the best investment you could make. So that's something that I'll leave there for you to simmer. And once again, all of these tips are actually in that blog post that I shared earlier. So if you want to dig into it a little bit further, that blog post has 76 tips as well as a couple of YouTube videos for you to watch. So it's kind of the best way I can offer for you to build off of what I've shared tonight. And I know we don't have a ton of time, and so I will stop sharing, and I am happy to take some of your questions before we part ways tonight.
Yes, we started a little bit later, so we don't have as much time. So let's see. I'll let Meryl lead the Q&A, and if anyone has any questions that they want to, you know, share right now, let's go for it.
Yeah, well, Andrea, this was a really fabulous presentation. You really gave a great bunch of insights, and whether people have questions or not, I would love to hear what their biggest takeaway might be from what you just shared with the group. So if you want to put it in the chat, that would be nice to hear. But
I'm definitely going to go look at the blog post.
Yeah, I think I might even go share it on my LinkedIn page. There's been a lot of great stuff. So, really good. So let's see. Anybody have anything they want to share? Any like, aha, wow, that was great. That she, information that Andrea shared with us. Anybody?
I see one question in the chat here on how do you recommend improving our speaking and presentation skills? It's still a work in progress for myself. You can see that I've gotten very red over the last 20 minutes. But I would say starting small, like this context here is such a safe and great place to practice your speaking skills, get comfortable in front of other people, even if they're just tiny boxes on your screen. Starting with smaller meetups, for me personally, that was actually my journey in getting more comfortable speaking in public. It was speaking at my local WordPress meetup, and then speaking at my local WordCamp, and then getting on bigger and bigger stages. So that's one way, but also just when you speak about things that you're confident about, it comes more naturally. So I would say put yourself in positions where you're talking about something you're passionate about, whether it's your own career story at first or, maybe a project you're working on. If you're looking for opportunities to speak, look for the ones where you're actually confident that you are a subject matter expert, and then you can fake it after that. I think once you start getting comfortable talking about something that you know, learning something new and then turning around and turning it into a talk will likely come more naturally too.
I'm seeing a lot of questions just about your lighting and just like your background and also your presentation and how well you did. So I'm getting a sense that it was not just what you said, because there are a lot of comments about appreciating what you shared, but it's also how you presented it as well. And so, I guess we'd be happy for a blog post on how on how you set up your background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One quick tip I can give about lighting is if you can, so I have a wall behind my screen and I bounce the light off of the wall onto my face rather than have the light on my face.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I also thought it was really interesting how you said the different platforms share their content over other content, right?
Yeah.
But I was like particularly fascinated when you said you should post about 35 YouTube videos for you to start getting traction and stuff. So like, how did you develop like an awareness for that? And where, I think that's really helpful because you pointed, of course, you talked about Facebook, but LinkedIn and blogging and Quora and YouTube. So you really gave us an idea of a lot of different places to go. So where did you get the insight for that?
Yeah. So when I was looking into YouTube strategies, I followed a lot of YouTube. This is going to get a little meta, but YouTube creators who talk about YouTube creation. So I followed a bunch of people that just gave those tips on, how to master YouTube or how to become #1 and things like that. And the other thing I would recommend, and this is true for YouTube, but also true for other other platforms, is follow the official account for that platform or whatever the variation is for creators. So you can follow the YouTube creator account. You can follow the Instagram for business or Instagram for creators account. You can sign up to their content and they will tell you, they'll tell you, create more reels or, use these tips on your YouTube videos, and they'll share all the updates with the changes in their algorithms. So it can feel like a lot to keep on top of every single trend and tip. So the easiest thing is to go straight to the source.
That's an excellent point. That's excellent. I would not have thought about it, but it makes absolute sense.
So I see there's a question from Carol. What if you're not an expert and have a multi-niche blog or website?
It sounds like it's kind of maybe like lots of topics and maybe some competing topics, or trying to more of a generalist. So it's harder to find a niche. Am I understanding the question correctly? Let me see.
That was Carol.
Yes.
Carol?
Okay. That's a tricky one. I think a lot of people would recommend picking a niche. I think that's just, it's a lot easier to strategize around one type of audience, but then you have exceptions to that rule, which are like lifestyle bloggers. Lifestyle bloggers talk about baking, they talk about home decor, they talk about shopping. They have a huge spread. And so for them, what seems to have worked is a persona. So who is this person that is running this blog, or who am I talking to that would also share this wide variety of interests? So rather than the niche being gardening, it could be my niche is people that have very small patches of land in their backyard and who might be interested in minimalist living and gardening and DIY home decor. I don't know. I'm kind of spitballing here, but the niche might be there. It just might not be so obvious. It might be more about the type of person consuming the content than about the topic itself.
Okay.
That's great. I saw there was a question, tools you recommend to manage posting to social media. That's from Eleanor.
Yeah. That's kind of like tools are very personal. So I would actually recommend signing up to a couple of free trials and seeing what interfaces you vibe with the most. So I don't think there's one, best tool for social media management. Over the last couple of years, I've used a bunch of different ones like Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout Social, and just to be transparent, at Kinsta at the moment, we're using Buffer and Sprout Social, and we're thinking of migrating everything over to Sprout Social. So there's some considerations of how many channels you're managing, the pricing, whether you need multiple user access, whether you need multiple like cross posting. So, if you want to just upload once and cross post to Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that all at once. So there's a lot of different considerations. So the only way to do it is to kind of do some research and test some stuff out.
That makes sense. I used Hootsuite initially, but I found it's a lot of work also to go there and post to different sites and things along those lines. And I've noticed now the platforms themselves allow you to schedule content. So just in case you want to create a lot of content and then spread it over time, like you can schedule videos on YouTube, you can schedule your tweets now. I'm not sure about Facebook or Instagram, but those are two, platforms that I think it takes a lot of time to create content for, or you want to think twice before you immediately publish it. So, maybe looking into that type of option as well could save you time.
Yeah. And if you're really on a budget, I have seen some people do incredible things with spreadsheets and incredible things with their email, like with their calendar, sending up reminders through your calendar and things like that. So you don't necessarily have to pay for a tool either.
Okay. I need some tips on that.
I know. Yeah. There's some master spreadsheet users out there. I'm not one of them.
Yeah. Excel is difficult. Takes a lot of experience with Excel. So does anyone, I definitely encourage you to, jump in and ask a question really quickly. Andrea, how are you doing on time?
I'm fine. Yeah. I can hang out for a little bit.
You can hang out? Okay. All right. So I definitely, I know we fielded questions and stuff, but I encourage, someone to start talking or asking a question. That might jumpstart the conversation too in another way. What do you think, Meryl?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, if anybody has something that says like, wow, that was really inspirational, please share. I really liked hearing how, I always, with my own website, when I write a blog post, I put the link in LinkedIn. And I didn't realize that it would be more beneficial to post it as an article or something like that. So that was really, really great to hear that.
LinkedIn is an interesting platform. I've seen a lot of different trends. So there is a name for this and I can't think of the name, but when you expand in LinkedIn considers that your piece of content was long, interesting, and people are engaging with it. The more people click expand. So unfortunately, it's a good piece. It's something that's good to know because it means, they're favoring longer content that people are, actively engaging with by choosing to expand. But then how people are circumventing that is that they're putting a whole lot of hard returns and then putting content at the end. So there's like this big reveal, like, they'll put one question and then a whole bunch of hard returns. So you have to expand to view it. And it's sort of tricking the algorithm into thinking that everyone's engaging with this content. But so there's a lot of different hacks out there that people are adopting to get around these different algorithm changes per platform. I'm pretty sure LinkedIn figured it out and now they're really looking at word count, but that's just something that I've seen around.
That was good. And I also really, when you first started out, I really liked how when you wrote, write useful content. I mean, of course, you think you're always writing useful content, but create content that answers questions. That's a really great way to start thinking about your topic that you would write about. And that was really, really good.
Yeah. Something that I've personally been doing on my own travel blog is going back to old posts that were full of good content, but I was just younger and didn't know as much about SEO as I do now. And going back and refreshing those posts to take that content and really make it obvious that it's answering a question. So, I think I had posts in the past that were kind of like what I packed for this place. And I would talk about my trip and I talk about my packing lists. And so now I've gone back and rephrased things to how to pack for this place and how, like really rephrasing it as questions and really going in and applying all of the SEO best practices. So what I would recommend to people who have years and years of content on their website is don't feel like you have to start fresh tomorrow and only build good SEO friendly content, starting from scratch, but go into your old posts, revive them, pull out what's really good, combine posts that together are stronger, and you can do a lot with your old content too.
That's good. Good tip. Good tip.
It is.
Well, I'm always wondering about keywords. I mean, other than going to Google AdWords, I mean, do you have any other suggestions where to find the best keywords for yourself?
Yeah, there are a bunch of tools for that. Some are paid and some are free. Some have free trials. I think there's a couple like Ahrefs, Ahrefs is one that's pretty popular for keyword research. And then there's BuzzSumo is another one. SEMrush can help kind of scrape the internet for competitor keywords as well. There's a couple of tools out there. If you look for like SEO keyword research tools, there's a list out there, and there are pros and cons for each, but I don't know them that well to be able to recommend one over another. But you can also just use Google itself and see, what the suggestions are, although sometimes that's maybe can pull you in the wrong direction. But yeah, so two things about keyword research that I want to just highlight, and this is very high level, but you want to look at the keyword sort of ranking, like how many people are looking for that keyword and how many websites are ranking for that keyword. So you want to find one that is high search and not that many people are ranking for. So that way, when you're publishing content that a lot of people are looking for and there isn't too much competition for. So sometimes, if for my own personal packing blog, like packing and like packing lists, very high competition for those keywords. So I have to get a little bit more niche and a little bit more creative and go after the people who are looking for how to pack for Portland or how to pack for, and make sure that my blog posts are adapted to a keyword that's maybe a key phrase. And so I might not be number 1 for packing, which would be really hard to do, but I might be, number 4 for how to pack for Portland in the summer.
Nice. Good.
I was trying to remember what you said about YouTube and how you could take a part of the video and put it on. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't catch all of it. Can you just sort of go over that briefly, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So in the example I was sharing, if you publish a video to YouTube, you'd probably want to promote it on Twitter and on Facebook to invite people to go watch your YouTube video. But what Twitter and Facebook will do is they will favor video that's been uploaded natively to their platforms rather than an outbound link. So what I would do is, if you're the YouTube creator, then you probably have the video files on your computer. I would find a really great section of the video, maybe a 30-second clip that is really intriguing. And I would upload that natively to Facebook or to Twitter so that if Twitter and Facebook register that as native content, and they will give more visibility to that than just a link to YouTube.
Right, right. Okay. Now I remember. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andrea, may sound a little bit strange, but I am really interested on how you set up your lighting, because I find that with my own lighting, you know, I had to change everything because the sun went down and I was running around trying to make myself look human again. And so I really love your lighting. And Meryl, your setup is very cute with the background too. But
Thank you.
the way Andrea has her lighting, you know, I just wish you could give me a little more detail, because I do interviews with people. I do have a blog and a podcast. So occasionally I would like to make my podcast a vlog, you know, where people could see things. And the lighting is the most daunting issue. So could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Well, I think part of it might be your camera as well. For me anyway, when I upgraded my webcam, it was a lot more easy to get the best results. So I don't want to say that it's 100% lighting. Sometimes it's the camera as well. Something else is that, so I mentioned bouncing the light off of a wall. So I have a white surface that is kind of acting as a diffuser for my light. And if you can't do that, making sure that the light you're using does have kind of a softer glow than just a direct light bulb. So whether that is using some sort of soft box, or maybe creating a soft box by putting a lampshade over something, you know, something that just makes the lighting a little bit less direct and more diffused and soft. That's helpful. And you can also look up, you know, guides and videos that kind of teach people. I'm not doing this at the moment, but I know 3-point lighting is the way to get the most balanced lighting. So you want to make sure that what's behind you is lit so you don't have shadows, that you're not sitting or standing too close to a wall behind you, because that can kind of, you know, you want a little bit of depth of field to create a more dynamic picture. And then you want to make sure that both sides of your face are evenly lit. So
Yes.
I think this is just kind of a fluke that it worked out for me tonight, because I don't usually, I have a window here. So in the daytime, it's a little bit bright. But in the evening, it's a little bit easier to control. Or if you're in a basement or something away from a natural source of light, it can be a little bit easier to control. Or you could face towards a window to get sort of an even amount of light from a window. The last tip I will say is that I have a large monitor in front of me. And something that my colleagues do that also have a large monitor is that when they're on a call, they will pull up a white page, whether it's like a Word document or something. And so their screen is emitting another source of light onto their face as they're talking.
Okay.
Thank
Wow,
you very,
interesting.
very much. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
You're
absolutely.
welcome.
We're spending so much more time on these like different, you know, like web, you know, platforms, these webinars. So
Yeah, it's so true.
yeah, this is probably going to become like, you know, a topic that's going to be interesting to everyone, right? Especially seeing how long we are pivoting in the space.
Yeah.
I love that we had like a flow of conversation. Like, does anyone else have anything to say? Or we're actually going on, like we're 20 minutes over, which is good because we kind of started 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you so much, Andrea, for your presentation. You know, it's like, as you mentioned, you come to New York City and it's always great to see you there. Just like she comes across warm, you know, through Zoom, she is that way. It's more than just lighting. I think that's just her personality shining through. You know, so thank you so much for making the time. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure. And it was such a great opportunity for me to flex my presentation muscles because it's been a while. And so I didn't share it, but I am on Twitter at Andrea Zoellner. That's my handle. So you can find me, follow me, tweet at me if you enjoyed this presentation, or if you have any follow-up questions that, as you're implementing these tips, if you come up against a roadblock, just shoot me a tweet. I'd love to help out.